Part 3, The Quicks' Counteroffensive. The Quicks' counteroffensive was swift and brutal. Overlord Zarek, determined to reassert the Dominion's dominance, launched a series of devastating attacks on the rebel-held worlds. The first target was Krylos, where Commander Terran and her rebels had scored their initial victory. Zarek's fleet descended on the planet, bombarding the capital city from orbit. The Krylosian rebels, though brave, were no match for the Quicks' overwhelming firepower. Terran watched in horror as her city was reduced to rubble. "Fall back," she ordered her troops. "We can't fight them head-on. We need to regroup and find another way." The rebels retreated to the underground tunnels beneath the city, where they had established a hidden base. Terran knew they couldn't defeat the Quicks in open combat, but she was determined to keep fighting. "We'll hit them where it hurts," she said. "We'll strike from the shadows and make them regret ever setting foot on our planet." Meanwhile, on Zorath, the Zorathian rebels faced a similar onslaught. The Quicks had learned from their mistakes and deployed advanced sensors to detect the rebels' guerrilla tactics. The Zorathians, though skilled in stealth, were forced to retreat deeper into the desert, where the harsh environment provided some cover. But even there, the Quicks pursued them relentlessly. "We can't keep running," said Zorathian leader Yarek. "We need to find a way to turn the tide." On Frostera, the Frostarians faced the most brutal attack of all. The Quicks, knowing the Frostarians' reliance on their icy environment, deployed thermal weapons that melted the ice and destroyed their habitats. The Frostarians, though resilient, were pushed to the brink of extinction. "We can't let them win," said Frostarian leader Lyra. "We must fight to the last breath." As the Quicks' counteroffensive gained momentum, Captain Marcus and Lieutenant Kara worked tirelessly to coordinate the rebel forces. "We need to find a way to counter their attacks," Marcus said. "If we can't stop them, the rebellion will be crushed before it even gets started." Kara nodded. "We need to hit them where they're weakest. Their supply lines. If we can disrupt their logistics, we might be able to slow them down." Marcus and Kara devised a plan to strike at the Quicks' supply depots, which were scattered across the galaxy. Using intelligence gathered from the various rebel factions, they identified the most critical targets. "If we can take out these depots," Marcus said, "we can cripple their ability to wage war. It won't stop them completely, but it will buy us some time." The rebels launched a series of coordinated attacks on the Quick supply depots, using hit-and-run tactics to avoid direct confrontation. The Quicks, caught off guard by the rebels' sudden aggression, were forced to divert resources to protect their supply lines. The counteroffensive began to lose momentum, giving the rebels a much-needed reprieve. But the Quicks were not easily deterred. Overlord Zarek, furious at the rebels' audacity, ordered a new strategy. "We will crush them with overwhelming force," he declared. "No more games. No more mercy. We will burn their worlds to ash and salt the earth so nothing can ever grow again." The stage was set for a final, decisive battle. The rebels, though battered and bruised, were determined to fight on. They knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they were ready to give everything they had to secure their freedom. The Quicks, though powerful, were facing an enemy that would not back down. The rebellion had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished, and the galaxy would never be the same. Part 2, The Rebellion Ignites. The fall of the Dread Spire sent shockwaves through the Galactic Dominion. For the first time in centuries, the Quicks faced a threat they couldn't simply crush underfoot. Captain Marcus's victory became a rallying cry for the oppressed species across the galaxy. On the planet Krylos, a once thriving world now under Quicks' occupation, whispers of rebellion began to spread. The Krylosians, a reptilian species known for their resilience, had suffered under Quicks' rule for generations. But now, they saw a glimmer of hope. In the shadows of Krylos's capital city, a resistance movement was forming. Led by Commander Terran, a seasoned warrior with a deep hatred for the Quicks, the rebels planned their first major strike. Terran had lost her family to the Quix's brutal regime, and she was determined to make them pay. "This is our chance," she told her followers. "The humans have shown us that the Quix can be defeated. We must strike now, while they're still reeling from their loss." The rebels' target was a Quix supply depot on the outskirts of the city. The depot was heavily guarded, but Terran had a plan. Using stolen Quix technology, the rebels had developed a device that could disrupt the Vorex's senses, much like the humans' sonic devices. "We hit them hard and fast," Terran said. "We take out their guards, disable their Vorex, and destroy the depot. This will be the first step in taking back our planet." As night fell, the rebels moved into position. Terran led the assault, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The Quix guards were caught off guard as the rebels stormed the depot. The Vorex, sensing the disruption device, writhed in agony, unable to attack. The rebels fought with a ferocity born of years of oppression, and within minutes, the depot was in flames. Terran stood amidst the chaos, her eyes blazing with triumph. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The Quix will pay for what they've done to us." Word of the Krylosian rebellion spread quickly, inspiring other enslaved species to take up arms. On the desert planet of Zorath, the Zorathians, a nomadic species known for their cunning, launched a series of guerrilla attacks on Quix outposts. On the icy world of Frostera, the Frostarians, a hardy species adapted to extreme cold, sabotaged Quix mining operations. The Dominion, once a monolithic force, was now facing a galaxy-wide uprising. Back on the Dread Spire, now under human control, Captain Marcus received reports of the growing rebellion. "It's working," he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kara. "The Quix are losing their grip on the galaxy." Kara nodded. "But we can't let our guard down. The Quix won't go down without a fight." Marcus agreed. "We need to keep the pressure on. If we can unite the rebel forces, we might just have a chance at taking down the Dominion for good." Marcus and Kara began coordinating with the various rebel factions, providing them with weapons, technology, and strategic support. The humans became the glue that held the rebellion together, their determination and resourcefulness inspiring the oppressed species to fight on. But the Quix were not idle. Overlord Zarek, though humiliated by his defeat, was determined to crush the rebellion before it could gain any more momentum. He ordered a massive counteroffensive, sending fleets of warships to quell the uprisings on Krylos, Zorath, and Frostera. The stage was set for a galactic showdown. The rebellion had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished, and the Quix were desperate to snuff it out. But the oppressed species of the galaxy, united by a common cause and inspired by humanity's defiance, were ready to fight for their freedom. The battle for the galaxy had only just begun. Part 4, The Final Stand. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The rebels, united under the leadership of Captain Marcus, Commander Terran, Yarok, and Lyra, prepared to make their last stand against the Quix. The Quix, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all, amassed their forces for a final, devastating assault. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The rebels chose the planet Valterra as their battleground. Valterra, a neutral world with strategic importance, was the perfect place to make their stand. The rebels knew that if they could hold Valterra, they could turn the tide of the war. But the Quix were equally determined to take the planet. Overlord Zarek himself led the assault, determined to personally crush the rebellion. As the Quix fleet descended on Valterra, the rebels prepared for the fight of their lives. Captain Marcus addressed his troops. "This is it," he said. "This is where we make our stand. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that has suffered under the Quix's tyranny. We fight for freedom. We fight for the future of the galaxy. And we will not back down." The battle began with a massive aerial assault. The Quix fleet bombarded the planet from orbit, while their ground forces landed en masse. The rebels, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that stunned the Quicks. Commander Terran led the Krylosian rebels in a series of hit-and-run attacks, using the planet's dense forests as cover. Yarrick and the Zorathian rebels used their knowledge of the terrain to set traps and ambushes, while Lyra and the Frostarians used their resilience to hold key positions. The Quicks, though powerful, were unprepared for the rebels' determination. The Vorax, once symbols of their power, were rendered useless by the rebels' sonic devices. The Quicks soldiers, accustomed to fighting terrified opponents, were no match for the rebels' courage and resourcefulness. The battle raged for days, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. But the rebels knew they couldn't hold out forever. They needed a decisive victory, and they needed it soon. Captain Marcus and Lieutenant Kara devised a daring plan. "We need to take out Overlord Zarek," Marcus said. "If we can eliminate him, the Quicks will lose their leader. It might be enough to break their morale." The rebels launched a daring assault on the Quicks command center, where Zarek was directing the battle. The assault was led by Marcus, Terran, Yarrick, and Lyra, who fought their way through waves of Quicks soldiers to reach Zarek. The final confrontation was brutal. Zarek, though powerful, was no match for the combined strength of the rebel leaders. In the end, it was Marcus who delivered the final blow, ending Zarek's reign of terror. With Zarek dead, the Quicks' forces began to falter. The rebels pressed their advantage, driving the Quicks back. The battle for Valterra was won, but the war was far from over. The Quicks' dominion, though weakened, was still a powerful force. But the rebels had proven that they could stand up to the Quicks, and they were determined to fight until the galaxy was free. The final stand on Valterra was a turning point in the war. The rebellion had proven that the Quicks could be defeated, and the galaxy began to rally behind their cause. The fight for freedom was far from over, but the rebels had taken the first step towards a brighter future. The galaxy would never be the same. Part 1, The Galactic Dominion's Reign of Terror. The Galactic Dominion, a vast and ruthless empire, was ruled by the Quicks, a species of towering insectoid overlords who thrived on fear and submission. Their armies enslaved countless worlds, and their most feared weapon was the Vorax, massive, serpentine beasts bred for destruction. To the Quicks, the Vorax were more than pets, they were symbols of their power. The Dominion had conquered dozens of species, and humanity was next on their list. But the Quicks had never encountered someone like Captain Marcus, a human diplomat who didn't tremble in fear. Marcus was summoned to the Quicks' flagship, the Dread Spire, to discuss the terms of humanity's surrender. The Quicks' overlord, Zarek, loomed over him in the throne room, his chitinous armor glistening under the harsh light. Behind him, a Vorax coiled menacingly, its razor-sharp fangs dripping with venom. Zarek hissed, "Human, you stand before the might of the Quicks' dominion. Why aren't you trembling? One word from me, and my pet will devour you." Marcus crossed his arms, unimpressed. "Yeah, I've heard that before. Let's skip the theatrics and get to the point, shall we?" Zarek's eyes narrowed. This human was unlike any he had encountered before. There was no fear, no submission, just defiance. It was infuriating. "You dare mock me, human? Do you not see the Vorax behind me? It could tear you apart in seconds." Marcus glanced at the beast and smirked. "Cute pet. Does it do tricks?" The room fell silent. The Quicks guards exchanged uneasy glances, while Zarek's grip tightened on the arms of his throne. "You insolent worm. I should have you flayed alive." Marcus remained calm. "You could try. But I wouldn't recommend it." Zarek snarled, rising to his full height. "Enough. Vorax, kill him." The Vorax lunged forward, its massive jaws snapping shut. But Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. With a flick of his thumb, he activated it, emitting a high-pitched frequency that made the Vorax recoil in pain. The beast let out a deafening screech, thrashing wildly as it retreated to the far corner of the room. Marcus smirked, holding up the device. You see, Zarek, we humans have a saying, know thy enemy. And we've been studying you for a long time. Zarek stared in disbelief. What is this trickery? Marcus replied, no trickery. Just science. You see, Voreks have incredibly sensitive hearing. This little gadget emits a frequency that disrupts their nervous system. Makes them less inclined to eat people. Zarek's mandibles twitched with rage. You think this changes anything, human? You are still outnumbered, outgunned, and on my ship. Marcus shrugged. Maybe. But here's the thing, you're not the only ones with pets. Before Zarek could respond, the ship's alarms blared. A voice crackled over the intercom. Overlord, we're under attack. Multiple vessels approaching, human ships. Marcus's smirk widened. Ah, right on time. The human fleet, led by the battleship Terra's Wrath, descended on the dread spire with precision and ferocity. The Quicks scrambled to defend themselves, but they were unprepared for humanity's ingenuity. The human ships deployed EMP pulses, disabling the Dominion's weapons and shields, while boarding parties stormed the flagship. In the throne room, Zarek roared in fury. You will pay for this, human. The Dominion will crush your pathetic species. Marcus stepped closer, his expression hardening. You don't get it, do you? We're not like the others. We don't bow to tyrants. We don't cower in fear. And we sure as hell don't back down from a fight. Zarek lunged at him, his claws slashing through the air. But Marcus was ready. He sidestepped the attack and delivered a powerful blow to the Quicks' midsection. The reinforced exoskeleton cracked under the force. Zarek staggered back, his eyes wide with shock. How can you be so strong? Marcus cracked his knuckles. Like I said, we've been studying you. And we've been preparing. As the battle raged on, the Quicks' forces began to falter. The Voreks, once symbols of their power, were now useless against the human sonic devices. The Dominion soldiers, accustomed to fighting terrified opponents, were no match for humanity's determination and resourcefulness. By the time the dust settled, the dread spire was in human hands. Zarek, battered and broken, was dragged before Marcus. You cannot defeat the Dominion, the Quicks overlord spat. We are Legion. We are eternal. Marcus crouched down, meeting Zarek's gaze. Maybe. But you underestimated us. And that's a mistake you won't live to repeat. With that, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving the Quicks overlord to face the consequences of his arrogance. The battle for the Dread Spire was just the beginning. Word of humanity's victory spread like wildfire, inspiring other enslaved species to rise up against their Quicks suppressors. The Dominion, once thought invincible, began to crumble under the weight of rebellion. As for Marcus, he became a legend, a symbol of humanity's resilience and defiance. When asked how he had stood so calmly before the Voreks, he simply smiled and said, "Fear is a weapon. And I don't give my enemies the satisfaction of seeing me afraid." The Quicks had thought humans were weak. They were wrong.